Hello, everybody, and welcome to Morality Matters. I'm your host, Michael Belton. I'm joined with Mike Sanders. He's been on the show before. Welcome back, Mike.
Hi guys, how you doing? Good to be
Yeah,
back.
great. Yeah. So I tell you what, we have a really incredible topic to talk about, and is showing up right now when men go silent. I think that this is something that we're seeing more and more prevalent in society today. We're
Hmm.
seeing more and more what appears to be men that are checking out.
Hmm.
um, I hear all kinds of reasons why people think that that's happening with guys. Some of them might be political in nature. Some of them might be just work related, family related. It could be trauma induced. But I think there might be something more to this. One of the things that I've kind of learned from you, Mike, is this idea of total health. Can you explain to everybody what you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think when we look at this idea of holistic health or total health, the word holistic is gonna kind of getting a little bit overly used, and so, but the reality is, it is whole. And so, what we have to do is we have to look at how you were created, and God created you with you have a spirit, you have a soul, and you have a body. And not to get too crazy and talk about crazy things, but that means then, and by the way, there's science actually points to the fact this does exist, that there are parts of you that are what we would say non-corporeal or non-material in nature. So in other words, they're not atoms and molecules and quarks and all these kinds of things. And then there's other part of you that is material in nature, which means there are atoms and molecules and so forth. So this idea then that the spirit, the soul, and the body make you who you are, which means you are a tripartite human being. You have three parts that make up the whole of who you are. With that being said, that means then that with you having that ability, that means that you can actually pull out, or it's a possible that we can pull out a higher level of potential out of you, so that you can actually be operating at a higher level than you were before. But on the other side of that, I believe we have an enemy that wants to try to keep you from actually increasing your human potential. And there's a reason why, and we can probably get out here in a little bit. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it sure does. And I think, what I see in society right now, the moral issue of what I'm seeing in society is they're trying to explain away so many things and come up with so many root causes. Like men are probably definitely just having a problem, right?
Yep.
Whether it be a guy who seems to be checking out of their marriage, whether it be they're having a bad time at work and they just seem to go quiet and check it out. Um, I've worked a lot with soldiers and police officers, right? I was in the army for 27 years and really worked at it. And I used to always go by this saying, like, if a soldier's like complaining and
Mm.
he's like moaning about stuff and he's doing this, he's doing that, like he's actually happy,
Yeah.
right? Right? Because he's talking, right? Like he's with the guys and he just like, you know, there's certain bond about everybody complaining about something,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But you have to be really, really worried, like when the guy goes quiet.
Yes.
Like when he goes quiet, there's something else going on there. And
Yep.
usually when you're had that camaraderie and stuff like that, like you know where someone's normal is. And then when they deviate from that normal and they go quiet on you, you're just like, wait a minute, what's wrong with Mike?
Yep.
Right? Something like he's off,
Yep.
right? And there's something else going on there. So, what are some of the things that you know of what causes men to kind of go silent or into isolation?
Yeah, so I gotta take some steps back really quick, because Mike, you talk about it all the time. I hear you talk about purpose, and that all of us have been given purpose, and really at the end of the day, human beings are looking for purpose. We're all looking for it. Well, what's interesting is that if you go to the first book of the Bible, Genesis 1:28 tells us that Adam and Eve were created. God created us, and then He said to us, "I want you to subdue, take dominion, be fruitful, multiply." This is Genesis 1:28. The idea was that He was making his sons and daughters. So there's your identity. You are sons and daughters of Christ. And then he's given you a purpose. You're here with me in this garden, but what I want you to do is to leave the garden, to go out there, and I want you to change the culture. The idea was change the culture to make it look more like heaven, right? Or make it look like it does here in Eden with where God was living, where he was at. So what's amazing is all people, whether we want to take on that responsibility or not, are actually here to bring the universe that's been given to us, which is a gift from our God. And the idea is we're supposed to be changing the culture to make it look more like it does in Eden. And so many of us go through life and have no idea that that's a thing. So with that being said, I believe that one of the ways, if we think about this, in Genesis 3, we saw where Satan came in and he didn't go and pick a fight with God, right? He didn't knock on the door and say, "Hey, God, come out here. I want to get in a fight with you in the front yard," because he knew he can't win that fight. But he can go to the chosen, which is Adam and Eve. I can go to the chosen and I can get them possibly looking in the wrong direction. And then I can end this idea of what God's trying to do on the planet, which is to change the culture to make it look more like it does in Eden. So when he did that, he went after Adam and Eve and he got them to sin. And we've been struggling with that decision since. So the reason why I bring that up, you asked me a question, why are men are going to solitude a lot of times? I believe that part of it comes from the fact that we have an enemy that is attacking and coming at men, and men are deciding, you know what? I'm just going to go back in. I'm going to go to solitude. I'm going to be disconnected. I'm not going to be engaged in the culture war. Whether we want to admit it or not, we're in one. And we've been in one ever since Genesis 3, right? So this idea then is that's the idea. I think that we are strong, we're powerful. There's certain things that we have that women don't have. So they're being attacked in different ways. But men, one of those ways I believe is solitude.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you, and I think we're just wired differently than women, right?
We are.
Part of that is just like we have to have purpose. Like I also think we have to be a protector. We have to
Yes.
be a provider. We have
Yes.
to feel like we matter. We almost have our own little dominion within the dominion, right? Like,
Yep.
and when we feel like a lot of those things are being taken away or challenged, or we're losing grip of that, I think it throws us off a balance,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So like I know for me, right? Like I like to, I feel like I like to work because it gives me purpose and I like to see results of that. And I like to be able to change something in a positive way, kind of like we were saying within my environment. I like to make things better around me
Yep.
and try to do that. When it doesn't go well, obviously I'm not feeling good about it. Right.
Right.
But it's also like I also know like the people I surround myself with and things like that, that has a huge part of probably my overall mental health and everything else and being complete and total and whole, like you mentioned, because like there's little things like my wife can do that just put me like up here,
Yes.
right? Like if she goes, my wife only has to do something simple like, you know, Mike, I see you really working hard, man. I just appreciate you.
Yep.
Like, whoa, I'm like on top of the world for like a month, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's
You
true.
know, but like if you're a guy and you don't get that, like, and you don't feel like you're not appreciated, you're not adored, or something like that, then you might be looking in the wrong place. But it can start having its impact on you, and I see people sometimes withdraw from that. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. And the thing is woundedness is a thing. And you came from the army, you've seen the combat, you've seen combat, you know what that's about. And wounds can come in different ways and they can come spiritually. So again, we at the start of this talk, we talked about what it is to be whole and the tripartite human being, which is spirit, soul, and body. So we know for example, that each of these pieces are independent. They cannot be separated. So one of my favorite things to say is, when's the last time you heard a great sermon that did a great job explaining Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Spirit? Like it's a really hard thing to understand. But my question for you, for people is, okay, tell me where your spirit ends and begins, where your soul begins and ends, and where your body begins and ends. In other words, they're interdependent. They cannot be separated.
Right.
And so with that being said, then that when we get wounded in certain ways, we feel like we're not worth it. We're not doing a good job, or whatever it is. There's a billion things that can happen. Those become injuries to our soul. They become injuries to our spirit, and actually can affect us all the way down to the cellular level. That's the thing. It's called epigenetics. So it can actually affect us all the way down to the cellular level. And so one of the ways, again, that I think guys have a tendency to do is we get wounded, we get hurt, and then we start pulling ourselves away, and we miss that Jesus has a different plan for us. And that's why we got to keep our eyes on him all the time. What does he have to say? Not what does the world have to say, but what does he have to say about me? And that's something we have to remind ourselves all the time of.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I like how you talk about like the cellular level, because I relate that to times, like, when I went to combat and stuff, I came back, I dealt with a lot of issues too. I
Yep.
won't necessarily call it PTSD, although I've been diagnosed with that. Like for a long time, I just thought it was just stress, right?
Yeah.
I was just completely wigged out. I was dealing with a lot of stuff, having flashbacks, doing stuff like maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but like I was just dealing with a lot of things. And I noticed that the more I had things cycle through my head, and the more that I would just like reflect and get caught in this do loop in this circle, I would literally start getting sick.
Yep. Yep.
Like I would run a fever, like my
Yep.
my immune system would break down, and I would just like I would be a shell of myself. It would affect me physically,
Yeah.
and it's to your point.
Yeah. So one of the things that's interesting too is in the military, God bless them. I've been working with the military for 16 years. And so I understand how things kind of come up in the military, and they stick like glue and can never ever come off. So we talked about PTSD and I don't even like calling it PTSD. I would rather call it PTS. So
Right.
PTSD is a disorder, which means automatically I'm speaking to a soldier, you being the soldier. Yeah, you're messed up. You have a disorder and there's no way out of that. The reality is you can heal. And so that I like better this concept of PTS, which means that you can recover from those injuries. But one of the thing, and that is a thing, no doubt about it. And a lot of people deal with that. You don't have to go to combat to have that issue.
Right.
But the other thing that people struggle with, and I think is actually a more serious thing, is what we would call moral injury. And we're talking about morality matters here. So moral injury means, what does that mean? Moral injury, and I've had people say, well, that's kind of squishy. We don't really understand exactly. You're right, you don't,
Sure.
because what ends up happening is there was a wound to your soul. So this is just one example that I'll just use. As you were growing up, Mike, you were taught that you don't hurt people, you don't, you treat people a certain way, you take care of people, you open up the door for the little old lady, and those kinds of things. And then you go to war and you see what humanity can do to another human being, right? So
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
see that, it's rocking your moral compass in a way that we are not prepared to handle. And so what that is, that's a wound to the soul, that rocks your worldview. Everything gets rocked in that process. And then you add on the PTS and you add on the struggles. And then what you said was, you got back, you started having issues, where you got sick and just felt awful. Well, that is because that non-corporal, non-material side of you, the soul, which was wounded, is now affecting it interdependently all the way down to the cellular level. So you're getting sick. You're feeling that. Those are real problems, right? So that's what we're kind of getting at here.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. Like, I just think of moral injury is one of those things that when I first heard of it, like I knew what morality was and I knew what injuries were, right? When
Yep.
I first heard it, when that term first came out in the military, I thought it was just nonsense.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. I just
No,
was like,
everybody does.
like moral injury, like what you just kind of blow it off, just as like, yeah, I don't suffer from that, right? And then you start learning about it, and you're just like, well, wait a minute, right? Like, I don't want a victim mentality about it, but or anything like that, but like, there's something really there. And when I
Yeah.
started really assessing myself, like, I just remember one time, like in Iraq, I had 3 soldiers that went missing
Mm,
during the initial invasion in Iraq, and it was because I sent them to go do an ammo run.
mhm,
Right. So I was just like, hey, you guys, you three there, you go. We need more ammo. Go do an ammo run. And they had to go about 20 clicks away to go to where we knew the organization that had our ammo supply point was to pick up more ammo and bring it back. They
mhm.
never came back. And I was just like, oof, right. And then we were told, and I was given the order, we need to move. Enemies coming in. We can't stay where we're at. We're exposed. We got to get out of the area. Right. So here I am as a company commander. I'm like, we have to move. But on the back of my mind, I'm like, I've got 3 soldiers that are still out there. This
Mhm.
was their last known point.
Yep.
And I have lost radio contact with them. And then it was just like, no, we're going to hold. And then it was just like, no, you will move. So I'm catching up from the battalion commander. I'm catching up all those like, you need to move. You need to move now. Or otherwise you're going to be in a bad spot. Right. So it's just like, okay, we get up and we move. I don't, I don't see those soldiers for days, but in the time that that's happening, I know like the enemy has gone through that area. Like, I know that the parts of the Medina division of the Iraqi military has moved completely through that area after we left it. So I'm thinking like the worst, right? And I even hear somebody said, and I can't even remember which soldier it was or anybody else like that. I'm kind of glad I don't know who said it, but I actually said, "Oh, they're probably dead."
Mm.
And I lived with that for a couple of days. Like, I was the one that sent them. I played through the things in my mind for a while. Like, should more people gone with them? Should I had more security? Should I have like handled the situation differently? Right. And all the while, I'm just like, what if they are dead?
Mm.
Right. But I'm reporting up they're missing in action. Right. I'm reporting out, hey, still missing. And I even had my battalion commander come on, like, Mike, seriously? Like, it's been 3 days. You haven't found him yet? No, sir. I have not found him yet.
Mm.
Have no idea. Right. Fortunately, what happened was when we moved out, an artillery unit picked those 3 soldiers up and took them with them
Mm.
because they knew that we had to clear out the area. And it took a while in the fog of war and everything else like that for you to get communicated through the different chains. Hey, we got your 3 soldiers with us. They're okay. So thank God that they were okay.
Mhm.
But, like, that was messing with me for days until I got him back. When I got him back, I hugged him, right?
Yep. Yep.
But, like, those kinds of things, like, people don't like, you could be trying to make all the right decisions and doing everything else like that, and you could be wounded by it
Oh, yeah.
and second guess what you do when you really did nothing wrong,
Right.
but you're just like but you can be, like, really wounded by that. Like, if something would have happened to them, I'm telling you, it would have tore me up probably to this day.
Yeah, and that's the
Right.
thing with those kinds of wounds is they can get the best of us, and if we don't get help from them, excuse me, let me say it again. If we don't get help or recovering from them, and the only way we can do that is we have to share it with other people. And this is the thing about human beings because we're talking about men that get a tendency to, just kind of isolate themselves and so forth. And look, I'm not blaming anybody because I can do that too. But the reality is we are made socially to be together, and it's important that we find those that we can trust, that we can speak about these things and get them off because I believe if I remember right, years ago I remember reading a paper that said that if something like this happens with individuals, they may think that they'll be able to recover from it, But those that end up isolating themselves and holding it inside, it actually increases and gets worse over time. So there's no healing.
Right.
And my father, who passed away last year, he had an issue in his life where he had a massive moral injury that came up, and he never talked about it. I found out through about it through a family member, and I don't know. I mean, it's awful, and I know for a fact, without a doubt, that was something that ate away with him until the day he died. He never shared it with anyone. So it's important to share those things with other people.
Yeah, I think that that's important for men too, because like I think we're the worst at it. Like women are really
Oh
good
yeah,
about having their little social circles and just talking things out all the time. They have close friend groups that are good. Men, I think for us, we're used to, or at least for me, being around police officers and military guys, like you're dealing with a bunch of alpha males,
yep,
right? That are just like you used to going into chaos and being the one that kind of takes charge of it and
yep,
tries to fix everything. You're not the one that normally goes, "Hey, I'm going to have all this get, necessarily affect me. I'm going to be
yep,
the one that's going to go in there and bring peace to everything."
yep,
Right? And you think that you're going to do that, and sometimes you don't think you're going to be affected by it, right? And then all of a sudden, it kind of starts does, right? And we do a poor job as friends taking time to actually check in on each other, making sure that we're all right, and seeing it like. Again, I go back to a lot of soldier stories, and being in command's lonely. I always tell people like, hey, the higher up you go, the lonelier it gets,
oh yeah,
right? When I was just a private in the army, I mean, I had a whole platoon full of buddies,
hmm,
right? We would talk crap about each other and do all this kind of stuff in a brotherly kind of way, right? But if I started acting differently, somebody would come up to me and go, "Mike, what's your problem, dude?"
yeah,
Right? They would shake me, like, "Hey,
yep,
man,
yep.
yo, you all right?" But they would, I had that, right? That's part of the brotherly camaraderie that you get because you're just so in tune with each other. Um, I would say that the average man is almost like the commander. He's alone,
Yeah, very much.
and I don't know what it is with our society or what we do and things like that, but we do not bond enough as men that I think it's too easy for men to go isolated. I think it's too easy for men to go silent, and I think actually probably more people are going silent and in isolation than not. That's a real concern.
It's a huge concern, and I'm just sitting here thinking that guys, we have a tendency, think about the movies we grew up on, think about the our heroes, and my wife and I just actually finished up this great show based off of the spies of George Washington during the Revolutionary War, and it was just an incredible story. And of course, people die in this show that we watched, and some of the our heroes in the show were the ones that were taking the gunshots and things like that. And in the heat of the moment, it just doesn't make a great story. That I pull a gun out, shot a bad guy, and now I'm moving on, and we're going to get freedom. But the reality is, when you do those things, you're taking another human life, and those things will start eating away at us. And I know, and I'm going pretty far here, but I guess the point is with guys alone, we have a tendency to just see our heroes, kicking everybody up and beating them up and all this kind of stuff, but we don't see the aftermath of what that does to a human being. And it's funny as you were talking, and some of the people probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but this is one of the greatest scenes I think in the movie First Blood, long time ago with Sylvester Stallone. At the very end of the movie, he's talking to his colonel, and he's in the police station. He's shot; it's all shot up and everything like that, and he just starts crying and talking about what he saw in Vietnam.
Right.
And that was a healing moment for him. But those are things that he pushed down and pushed down, and we have a tendency to think that that's how we're supposed to be. That's what men do, is we just push down our pain and we just drive on. But the reality is, man, we cannot do that, and that means that we have to not put ourselves in isolation. We have to speak out and find those that can help us out as best we can.
Yeah, so for when I look back, I think there's also a normal instinct that if you're close to somebody and you see that they're off and they're like your buddy, it's very
Yeah,
easy to go like, "Hey man, what's going on? You all
yeah,
right?" kind of thing. But when you don't have that support group, like I will tell you, since I've been in the military, I really haven't had that. Like me personally,
yeah.
and I run a ministry on the side. I do all this other kind of stuff. I'm dealing with people all the time, everywhere I go. But like nothing was quite like it was when I was in the military.
Hmm.
Right. And maybe it's because after 27 years, you almost really kind of get used to the culture or whatever. I don't know. But, and it was a really hard part. But like that's where I found like a lot of my support from,
Hmm.
right? Where
Yep.
where people could look at me and go, I could tell something's wrong with Mike,
Yep.
right? Kind of thing. And I just think like today, I see so many people like, and I think it's hard because the more I get around to like really connecting with people and figuring out where their heart is and figuring out how to minister to them and do different things like that, the more I see men that are just broken,
Hmm.
right? And I'll start getting into and getting behind to like their family situation, their work situation.
Yep.
Some of it's meeting expectations or not meeting expectations, right? Like, hey, I had this vision for my life, or I wanted my marriage to be something different than it is, or I expected my kids to love me more and they don't really seem like they do, or whatever the case may be, right?
Mhm.
And men just kind of go isolated, right? I'm just wondering, like, in your view, what are some things like if you noticed yourself just really start to get down? Because there's probably guys out there that are going to watch this video and go, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of me too. Yeah, now that I think about it, I don't have a lot of friends. I kind of more stay isolated. What are some things that men can do when they find themselves in that situation and say, let me do some total health kind of checks and maybe some things to kind of get out of my rut and get healthier. What are some of those things, Mike?
Yeah, so there's always somebody out there, somebody. It's got to be, a friend. It could be, somebody in your family. It could be, your wife. It could be a lot of different people that are out there, and we have to be okay with sharing our struggles that we have in our hearts. We have to be able to go find someone. There's pastors, there's chaplains, there's all kinds of people. We have to be able to find someone to share the things that are going on in our hearts. And one of the things that we have to be careful of is we cannot take on identities. In other words, I am a something, whatever it is I did wrong. I cannot take that on and say I am that, because what that is that's taking on as an identity, and it's hard to escape identities. That's not
Yeah,
who you are. But if I say, man, I, instead of saying I am this, I did this, that it means that I can recover from it, because it doesn't mean that I am that thing. That means I did something that doesn't line up with my identity, which is I am a child of God. So this idea then is that I have to find ways and find people that are out there that can help me. And it's hard, really hard to admit when I've done something awful, but that's the first step in your healing process. Is you've got to bring somebody in that will come along with you, and try to find the healing for it.
yeah, and I think that's good. And I think there are people who are secular who even who don't believe in God who could stumble across this show, right? So
For sure.
obviously, we want them to be able to look for that moral compass and that morality through a Bible believing church.
Yep.
But if you're not there and you happen to be watching this show, I think it's always good to be able to find those positive influence in your life that can help you getting to the right path. I always use a term, and I don't know where it comes from. You probably know, I don't know, but I always heard this term, and it always stuck with me that this too shall pass,
Yeah.
right? Where when it comes to identities, I think it's like that too, right? So like whether it's positive or negative, like everything can be going wrong. And I used to remember like the worst of the worst that the military can put through me, and I'm just being drugged through the mud, right? Like it's just like I'm down, I am just getting beat up, and I'm just like, you know you have this term like when you're young infantry guys, and just suck it up, right? This too
Yep.
shall pass, right?
Yep.
This is only going to happen for a while. So just suck it up and keep going, right? And you're just like, yeah, 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 just keep it going. And it did. It passed, right? But here's the other thing. I remember the highest high moments of my life were like you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, guess what? That too shall pass, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
You're not going to stay there, right?
Nope.
So like whether it's good or bad, this too will pass. And so it's good that those things that happen to you, to your point, that you don't make it your identity, because whether it's your true successes or whether it's the lowest lows of your life, those two shall pass,
Yes.
right? And so you have to find your identity in something else. Like, what is your purpose? What is, what, what are you all about? And sometimes it just takes that part of just understanding who you are and look in the mirror. I always talk about look at, and you went through our course just recently,
Yep.
and we have that one chapter that we go through where we talk about who are you?
Hmm.
Look in the mirror and ask yourself, well, who are you?
Yep.
And I remember going through that. I looked in the mirror myself the first that time that idea came to my mind to do that. I looked at myself in the mirror and go, "Who are you?" And I didn't have a lot of good answers.
Yeah.
I was just like, "Well, I'm this, I'm that," but I was like, "No, those are things that I do. That's not who I am."
That's exactly right. Yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
so, and I think a lot of people that when you're doing this, because it's tied to your morality, it's tied to everything else later. Do you identify by what you do, or do you know who you are?
Yeah. Yeah, about 16 years ago, I was working for SEAL teams, and what my background is I'm what you would call a human performance specialist. So my job is to prepare people for environments, and so we do that physically, mentally, spiritually. And back in those days, I was working with a bunch of SEALs that were, and one guy in particular got hurt and was trying to recover from the injury, and I was walking through this. It's called a training room. It's where the physical therapist, athletic trainer, and those individuals are at. And I was walking through, and I heard him yell at me. He goes, "Hey, Mike, come here a second." I walked over to him, and he goes, "Man, I heard you got some new theory on training us." I said, "Yeah, I do." And he said, "Let me hear about it. I can't wait to hear about it." I said, "Well, this is what we're doing," and da 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 da. I explained it out to him. He goes, and then he just gets really quiet, and he goes, "Man, whew." I said, "What's the matter?" He goes, "Man, I cannot wait to shoot and run and lift weights and strong again and have all that stuff." And he stops and he goes, "Man, you ever seen the movie 300?" And I said, "What?" And all of a sudden everything just kind of like shifts on me. And I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "The movie 300, you ever seen it?" I go, "Yeah, I've seen the movie." He goes, "Man, that's what I want to do. I want to look like a warrior." Now, hearing this from a SEAL was like, what am I hearing right now? So I looked at him, I said, "You want to look like a warrior?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, I tell you what, you want to know what a real warrior looks like? Once you're done with your rehab, I want you to get up, walk in the bathroom, turn on the light, and take a good, long, hard look into the mirror, and you're going to find out what an actual warrior looks like." So I bring that up because we have a tendency to miss it completely, that I am an individual that's in this space, and even this hardcore high end. I mean, I know these guys; they're hardcore high end people, and even he was questioning himself. So, again, why? Why was he questioning himself? And I think it comes down to that we have an enemy that is doing that. That's trying to get us to question who we are, and it goes back again to we are childs of God. So anyway, that it's an interesting situation.
No, no, it certainly is. And I want to give a message out to those who are watching. Like, if you do feel down, like, definitely go out there and try to find help, whether it is somebody they do. And I'm not talking to necessarily a psychiatrist. If that's like you're like, no, I'm not going to go see some shrink. Okay, well, who near you? Do you have a buddy that you can contact? Just say hey and get together and do things. And then I would encourage you to do little things, right? Little
Mhm.
things where you get little victories. Like we're wired where we want to have victories in our life. And I remember the retirement speech of a Navy SEAL that, since you brought him up,
Mm.
named Admiral McRaven.
Yep.
When he did his retirement speech, he did something and he had this whole thing, but he goes, sometimes it just starts with just making your bed,
Yep.
right? Did you hear that one?
Yeah, I
Right.
love
So,
it.
like, so I love that because he goes, everything can go wrong throughout your entire day. But if you made your bed, at least you get to come home to a made bed.
And you did something.
And you did something,
Yep.
right? You made your bed,
Yep.
right? And I think like, and so I'd never forget that, like, what a phenomenal speech. So like I make my bed, right? And
Yeah.
and I didn't always make my bed. Like I did it when I had to in the military and things like that. But now, like I was so inspired by Admiral McRaven's speech that I'm just like, I'm gonna make my bed because I don't know what this day is gonna turn out to be like. Like I have my checklist of things I want to check off. And like most days, I go through days where nothing gets checked off,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Right? Those days happen. It's like
Yep.
I only had 3 things to do today, and I didn't do none of them,
Yep.
right? And it just happens. But like, okay, I made my bed. The other thing that I think is really, really good for men, and it's probably because, to your point, to the molecular level, like have a workout.
Yes.
Because I will tell you, as men, like we have to have a place to exert our energy,
Yep.
and there's something to doing some push-ups, doing a few free weights. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Going for a walk, go for a swim, or if you're like a real athlete or a pro type of guy, get your whole routine in. You know, do those kinds of things because if you add that to your day, it lifts you up all around. You'll be I always say like the hardest thing to do is to tie your shoelaces,
Yep.
right? Once
Yep.
you're there, you're gonna feel so much better that you actually went and worked out.
Yeah.
Whatever that.
Okay. This is great. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm gonna try to make this as easy to understand as possible. Our brains are set up to create neural pathways. So when a neuron, the more I fire a neuron, the more it communicates with other neurons, and the more they fire together, they stay together. They do things together. So when we think about habits, then habits that we bring up, it's an easy, it's kind of a layman's term of saying, when I have a habit, what's happened is I've actually changed the plasticity of my brain. My brain's actually changed. So what's really amazing is that we have learned now that if I go out for a run, and they don't have anything on lifting weights right now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't lift weights, because there's other reasons why you would want to lift weights. I'm just using this as an example, that if I go out for a run, your brain actually releases something called brain derived neurotropic factor. Now, it's a really long word, so we're just going to call it BDNF. In fact, we'll make it even easier. What that is, BDNF, is miracle growth of the brain. So in other words, if I go for a run in the morning, if I'm doing things and I'm trying to change my brain, which is a habit, which means those neurons fire together over time, then what ends up happening is I'm doing it over and over again. I'm willing it into action. And then what ends up happening is the miracle grow in our brain actually creates these neurons. So if I'm trying to create a better habit in my life, if I start in the morning by taking care of myself by simply going out for a run, my brain's actually set up to improve itself as the day goes on. Does that make
Oh, that's so
sense?
fascinating.
Yeah, it's
That's so
fascinating. So this is that interdependency that I was talking about. Um, all of that stuff does affect us, and so going out. So here's what I would say. One of the things I do every day, I tried, and not so much on the weekends because we're going to church, we got other things going on. But I get up early in the morning before work, and I try to take care of myself mentally. I try to take care of myself spiritually, and I try to take care of myself physically. I do all those things because I take care of myself first, so that I can now serve everybody else. So all
Nice.
that's now behind, but the first part of the day, it's about me. What do I need in order to make sure I have what I need so that I can go out and serve everybody at a higher level throughout the day? And that should be what we want to do is we always want to be serving other people. And it's important that we keep that in mind as well.
No, that's so good. Because one of the things that I really truly believe in is this H3 cycle that I've
Yes.
told people about, and you've learned my position on that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can go through a part where you're hurting in life, some kind of traumatic event happens to you, or you're suffering in some kind of way, and you need that time to heal. And a lot of people, when they go through something really major like that, they want to give back. Like, we're
Yeah.
wired to want to give back.
Yes, we
I
are.
really truly believe that. Like, if you don't give back in some kind of way, you're robbing yourself, and you are actually bringing yourself, I think, down,
Yep.
because I think you're just wired to want to give back in some kind of way, right?
Yeah.
So, and so you have this cycle, right, that kind of happens, and then sometimes when you go through helping other people, you can be re-traumatized because you remember your circumstances, blah blah blah. I won't dwell too much more into that, but what I do think for that is, I love the idea of this idea of making your bed, starting off with the workout. I do like the taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, starting off the day. Even if you're secular watching this show, you really need to consider, how do I take care of myself mentally, physically, and spiritually? If you're not in touch with it spiritually, it might be something small,
Yeah.
right? Like, go ask somebody a question, that's spiritually related, and try to get into it. One of the things I do, and I didn't even realize I was doing it, but now that you brought it up, I guess I do those things in the morning, because
Yeah.
some of my routine in the morning is, I don't do anything. Like, I'm 55 years old now. I'm not having PT like I did in the military, where I had this huge hardcore workout, or like you did when you were working with hockey athletes or anything else. I don't. I'm not to that level, right? Anymore. And I question that, how much of a level I ever really was at, right? But I will say, like, I do work out a little bit in the morning, right? I do read a few passages in the morning. I do kind of like think through my day. How am I feeling? I kind of do like almost like a total systems check.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. Now I got an idea of how I'm going to take on this day. Let's go.
Hmm.
Right? Shower up. Let's eat something good to eat. Let's get going. Right.
Yep.
And then there I go with my day. And then we see where it goes from there. Right.
Yeah.
But like, there's other little things that I do that also kind of force me. Like, one of my best friends is going to sound silly. One of my best friends is my dog,
Yep.
right? Like, and you see me because we live in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
I walk my dog every day. I walk my dog sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. He loves it, and I love it. We kind of got our own little bond that way. And there's times where he comes over there, and maybe I'm just kind of like slashed down behind the computer, nudging away at something, and he'll come and start nudging me. Come on, buddy. Come
Yep.
on, buddy. Let's
Yep.
go. Time to go walk.
Yep.
And I'm just like, yeah, buddy, you're right. I need to get up out of this seat, and I need to go get some steps in.
Yes.
And you know what? I feel good about it. My dog's happier. I'm happier. And then I can take on other people and other people's problems.
Okay. This is great. Okay. So, Mike, you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
Like, you're a busy guy. You got a lot going on. And you take that time during the day to go out for a walk with your dog. Now, my question for you is how many times when you get back from that, where you're taking a break, you're walking away and going on this walk, you get back and now all of a sudden the problem that you had or whatever is now, and it doesn't happen all the time, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I know exactly what I need to do. And you get this fresh energy that you did not have before.
Almost every time. It's really
Yes,
weird.
almost every time.
Almost every
And
time.
yes. So one of the things I love about this too is our brains work very interestingly. That if I'm focused on something and I'm really trying to hammer it out, it's no different than if I'm lifting a heavy weight. I'm lifting this heavy weight, and over time, my legs are. Let's say I'm squatting, and I'm squatting a whole bunch of weight, and over time, my legs actually, because you don't get stronger while you're working out, you actually get weaker. Uh,
Right.
so what ends up happening is I'm working out, I'm getting tired, and my muscles aren't working as well. Where our brains work exactly the same way. So if I'm working on an issue, I'm really focused, and our brain is actually working to help overcome this issue, or I'm creating, or whatever it is I'm doing. Well, what's interesting is if I lift legs again tomorrow, and I do it the day after, and I do it the day after, what ends up happening is I start wearing my legs out. And so most people will tell you lift legs today and do something slightly different tomorrow. Why? Because the working out is actually what makes it, is a catalyst that helps it grow, helps my legs grow. But when I'm doing it, I'm actually getting weaker. It's the resting that actually makes my legs stronger.
Wow.
Okay. So this idea then is that our brains work the same way. If I'm super focused on something and I'm trying to overcome this problem, trying to fix something, whatever, we now know that I can, if I get up and I go for a walk with my dog, what I'm actually doing is I'm switching. I'm actually taking care of myself physically, and my brain, that portion of that brain of really focusing on it, shuts down, and something else happens. There's a different part of your brain that picks up the problem and starts trying to figure it out for you, and you don't even know what's happening.
You
So
don't even
you
know.
get, yeah, so you get back, then you get back from your walk, and all of a sudden there's this new refreshment that you have, because the brain was getting rest. It was figuring out the problem somewhere else. Now it's shifting back to your focus, and many times we can actually figure out the problem much quicker if we take that break.
And that's exactly what happens. So, like, it is, and I will tell you now, I think going for a walk is one of my favorite times of the day.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't know what it does for my dog, but it surely does a lot for me.
Well, apparently the dog likes it because she comes looking, or he comes looking for you all the time to go for his
Oh, he
walk.
looks for me every day, and
Yeah.
he comes and nudges me. He's like, "Come on, dude, let's go."
And you know what's great about that, Mike, is it's a buddy,
He's my buddy.
right? So he's coming
Yeah.
along with you. And this we started this conversation off about men getting quiet and reserved and isolate themselves. We can't do that. You have to have a buddy. It comes along with you, and it's so important because we are not meant to be on our own.
Yes, and as we wrap this thing up, there's a couple of different areas that I wanted to talk, and maybe we're going to continue the show again in another part. And I really would like that. But I've ministered to, I've had some wives of soldiers who have come to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you on the phone." Okay, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. And I have some ground rules for that. Like, I don't believe in husband bashing.
Yep.
So, if you're calling me up to bash your husband, don't do that. But if you're looking to understand, I'm here to, and I'll have a serious talk with you. But I don't tolerate wives bashing their husbands,
Right.
right? So, like, it's one of those things that's like, well, my husband's checked out, right? Like,
Mm.
he went isolated on me. I don't know what his problem is. He's not doing this. He's not helping around the house. He's not doing anything with the kids. He's not. I'm just like, okay, there's usually small things that would be very, very helpful in a situation like that. And I always believe positivity, even in a secular aspect, goes a long way,
Yeah.
right? Like, you got to
Yep.
start somewhere with something positive, right? And and so I'll tell that wife, like, uh, you might not see anything positive in him right now, but he needs something positive to happen in his life. If
Mhm.
he's checked out, he's gone isolated, like, that's not a good place. Right? So that
Right.
means you need to do something small, something positive, bring something light. The last thing that you should do is go beat him up about it.
Right.
What is he going to do? He's going to get more quiet and he's going to get more disconnected. He's going to want to avoid you because he doesn't want you nagging at him. He doesn't want you beating him up about it or whatever. Right? None of
Mhm.
that's helpful.
Nope.
Right? So, do you have a recommendation for somebody who might be listening out there of how you would approach somebody like that who's quiet without beating them up about them being checked out?
Whew, yeah, I mean, the issue with answering that question is there's so many people, everybody's different, and you just don't know the issues that they're dealing with. And I would just say that the biggest thing that I think men forget is how important we are to our families.
Mhm.
So, I would say that maybe in this situation, and we're talking about a wife, it might just be the situation like going to the man and just say, you are our leader. You're the leader of the house. You're the leader of we need you in this relationship. We need you in our lives. And really what it comes down to is that's what it's about. It's about us feeding into other people's lives.
Oh, that's
So
so
I think the key is just to start there and say, let that person know, the man know how much they love him, they care about him, and they need him. He is the protector of the home. He's the warrior of the home. He's the one that brings things to the table. And that doesn't mean, I want to be very clear, that doesn't mean that the wife doesn't have a job either, because that's the whole idea, is that when we were brought together as husband and wife, there's a team. It's a team effort. And she has things, my wife has, she brings things to this family that I could never do, but
mhm.
I bring things to this family that she could never do. And that's why we're a team. That's why God put us together. And then our kids and so forth, they're part of that process. And so I think that's where the healing begins, is just letting someone know just how important they are.
That is so good. I'm so glad that you said that, because I do believe like that's a huge part of it, right? So like if you see somebody who is down that's out there, a lot of times a little bit of encouragement, sometimes a little bit of pointing out like how valuable they really are,
Yeah.
really helps them. They might be seeking for purpose. They might have lost hope. They might there could be a lot of things that are going on, because you're right.
Yep.
There's so many different things that can affect a guy, right? But I will tell you, it's pretty universal.
Yeah.
Um, we if we feel like a hero in our own life, there's somebody else that goes like a million miles,
Yeah.
right? And it could be something small, like just knowing that your family, like you matter to your family. Because I'll tell you, there's dudes out there that will be like, I don't even know if, if they would even want me around anymore.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of deep stuff going on if you making a comment like that, right?
Yep. For sure.
So, but I will tell you, like, if you're with someone else who's isolated, just beating them up or telling them, "Hey, you need help," or something like that, even though it might be true, they probably do need help, but like just doing like that is not the right approach. Sometimes the best approach is just showing them that they have value.
Yeah, that's right. I had a very important person in my life, very important person that had a tendency to believe that he wasn't worth anything, that he wasn't giving, that we didn't care, that all the different things. And it was crazy, because you try to show them and tell them, and they would turn it off. And I think it's just important that we just keep reminding that we need those people in our lives. We love them, and we want them in our lives. That's really what it comes down to. It's just very important for people to know.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you so much for being on the show. We're going to have to do it again. Hopefully,
Yeah,
we can do it regularly, because I just love these conversations. I mean, we've only scratched the surface on
yeah,
this.
we could go a
So much
long ways with this one, Mike.
A long ways. Like this could be like 180 parts to this thing.
Yeah,
Very,
seriously.
very. So, but yeah, guys, if you guys enjoy this content, make sure you like and subscribe to it, and make sure you share it with people who are around you. I know a lot of people listen to podcasts, stuff like that. Put this in there, let it run over YouTube, listen to it as a podcast, and stuff like that, because this stuff does matter. And if you do see somebody, this is the moral thing about making the world around you better, right? Like morality does matter, but it also matters that you use your own moral compass to make the people around you better. Like I
Mhm.
love it when I feel like I've actually had some kind of positive impact on somebody else's life, just in a small way, right? And you can do that. Like imagine how our world around us would be if we all did a little bit to pick each other up around us,
Yep.
right? So, with that being said, Mike, I appreciate you. This is Morality Matters, because morality, it definitely does matter. And until next time, take care.
Thanks, guys.